What's up, YouTube? Today I wanted to address a topic that honestly, I don't know that I've really spent a lot of time addressing in recent years at all with the public. I know I've worked with these things one-on-one with clients, but I'm not sure I've ever really made any videos on this, but it's becoming a trending topic. And honestly, I'm really happy to see that because it's one that like when I was healing at one point in my life, I had no one to help me with this. Nobody. It was 2005, and I basically had like severe pain in my leg. I um, was really depressed, and I had this horrific pain in my leg, and it wouldn't go away. And I spent thousands of dollars trying to get a diagnosis, trying to fix it. I mean, we're talking like even with my natural doctors, like even those who kind of pierce that metaphysical veil were like, I got nothing. And I just found myself kind of at a loss. And I thought to myself, okay, I know the rules. Um, if I exist, therefore I'm connected to all that is. Um, there's got to be a way around this, right? And I just haven't seen the answer yet. And so it was one of like those low points in my life. And I just like literally was like, okay, God, if there is a way through this to heal, show me. And like, I promise I will take responsibility, the principle of surrender. And I stumbled upon Eckhart Tolle's book. And it was actually like my third time reading The Power of Now. Ironically, it was like always hovering like around my consciousness, like you're gonna need to read this. And I I read it and I really studied it this time. And Eckhart Tolle, I mean, just I think we can all agree, like he's a little bit ethereal. It's a little hard to extract some of his principles, like they're really vague. And even if you get it, it's hard to apply them, which is why when I wrote my book, I wrote it in like a how-to format because I really wanted the things that I talked about to be applicable to people. But the topic I'm essentially referring to is that of emotional addiction. And so I was reading his book and it just hit me like a ton of bricks. Like I'm addicted to my own emotional pain, and my own emotional pain is what's feeding my physical pain. And the thing is, again, I had no diagnosis. I was running in the dark by myself. I didn't know if this was truth, but it was like nothing else seems to be um creating solution with this. So that being said, um, I'm going to run with this theory. And I thought, okay, if I can give up my relationship to my emotional pain, let's see if my body heals. And it did, right? Like it took 6 months for the pain in my leg to finally go away. But you know what? It did. And for me, that emotional pain that I was addicted to was despair. I felt trapped in my reality, and the physical pain in my body kind of mirrored this feeling of not being able to get out of my body, to get out of pain, to get out of the problem, to get out, to free myself from the situation that I was in. And so this just became such like a powerful practice. I mean, I tell people all the time, like if you're struggling with individuals in your life, you're having these power struggles, it's always a reflection of the power struggle you're having with yourself. And if you can conquer a power struggle with yourself, nobody outside of you will ever be able to make waves in your life in the same way ever again. Because the hardest thing we can conquer is ourself, right? And that's why my focus when I work with people is self-mastery, because if you can, at your core, navigate this, everything else is logistical after that. Like everything else is just putting things in position. But we are the problem. Our mind is our greatest asset. It's also our greatest like hindrance. And so like for me, it was incredibly liberating to understand like, oh my gosh, I am the reason for this. Like it was like, oh my gosh, I'm the reason for this, right? It's like twofold. It was like, yay, I had the key to get out of prison, but oh my God, I was the one that put myself in prison too. Right? And so there was just this like duality going on in that healing process. And um, I have to give credit to a healer named Viana Steibel, who actually, I was on the phone with her at one point, and when I was in my struggle, and she said to me, she goes, what do you want more than anything? Right? I was just chronically in emotional and physical pain. And I said, I want freedom. And she goes, what would that look like to you? And I really just had no answer. I didn't know what to say. And she said, how about total and complete responsibility and accountability? Of course, at that moment, I had no fucking clue what she was talking about. It was in hindsight that it made sense to me, because in order for me to heal, I had to take responsibility for my feelings and thoughts. And so, again, like this topic is really trending, and I want to speak to it, because there's no worse feeling than feeling like you are a victim of something that you cannot change. And I go back to that principle I learned when I was a teenager of like, I am connected to the infinite. I am the infinite. Therefore, I am equally as connected to my solutions as I am to my problems. Where I put my focus is what creates that reality, what makes things real for me. But again, like, that's up to me. That's up to you, right? Like how we view reality. And so, I mean, still to this day, that's probably my greatest accomplishment, is overcoming this pattern I have, this relationship to myself. And what people don't realize, like, we think that our power is out there. If I can have an effect on someone, if I can manifest $1 million, like, we think that our power really lies in our environment and our circumstances and our capacity to have an effect on the external. And I'm not saying that there isn't power in that, but our true power lies in how we relate to our mind and how we navigate that. Because again, if we can't navigate this, the environment will always, always, always have our ass, always. And even if we're able to pull in things, because remember, we are not like, the reason that quantum theory doesn't work 100% of the time is because we don't live in 5 or 6D, we live in 3D. So we have aspects of this capacity to pull in money, and aspects of us to pull in a great person at just that right moment for just that right time, right? Like that exists. But see, the reason it doesn't like stay consistent is because of these other parts of our being that get in the way. Like self-sabotage, right? Or like, hating the self or whatever. And so, it's really important to learn how to be objective with ourselves. Like, our environment is always a reflection of what's happening on the inside. And so if we feel like everything is against us, we have to sit back and go, well, am I against me? And again, and this is why I'm not a Pollyanna about thinking positive. Thinking positive, that's like throwing, sugar on a toilet that's full of shit. Like, the shit doesn't go away just because you threw sugar on it, right? Like, we have to be willing to look our pain in the face and recognize it for what it is, so that it loses its potency, right? Like, if a child is throwing a tantrum and you look at that child in the eye and you just nod and you're like, okay, I see you. Like, it's only a matter of time before that they just lose their potency, right? If you're ignoring the child will get louder and louder and louder. But if you face the child, right, you face the demon, or you face the parasite, I call them parasites, the emotional parasites, it's exposed, and it can't continue to breed through your resistance to it. And so, I wanted to do a video on this, because again, all it really takes is just a string of shitty events for us to pull up enough of a sense of whatever, defeat, despair, failure, anything that we feel like we're going through, to then become addicted to it. Joe Dispenza talks about the original trauma, and I don't disagree with it, that there's original trauma that occurs at some point. And again, because that got stuck in the nervous system, the energy will continue to loop and grow, and it'll wait for its moments to come over and take over our consciousness. I definitely don't disagree with that. But again, like, you wonder why, like, certain periods of your life, you're like not struggling, other periods of your life, you're totally struggling. And I think this is why, because if we have enough back-to-back bullshit, it can pull up energy from our past and give it enough breeding power to where we're now addicted to it. And then we create from that space, right? Like all of a sudden we're like, well, shit, like I felt like everything was against me, and now I have evidence that everything is against me, right? Or whatever the situation may be. And it's through breaking up with this chemical pattern in the body, because it's like the cells need their fix. They signal to the brain sends a chemical message, and then you're now responding. The thought shows up, the emotion is right there, they click, we have an identity being reinforced. And so learning how to disentangle that process, right? So that we are now in charge of that inner space inside of us, and having the capacity to choose how we really want to feel, instead of feeling like we're a victim, right? To our environment, right? Or a victim to like the feelings that come up. And again, this is why people are escapists. This is why people are workaholics. This is why people drink too much, right? Because they don't know how to disrupt this process. And when we go to practice it, it gets worse. It gets worse. The thing gets stronger. And just like with a regular parasite cleanse, like these things will get really loud. And you'll feel like you're making no progress, when the reality is that's evidence you're making tons of progress. You're like, wow, this thing was annoying, and now it just won't leave me alone all day long. Like, or before it was only in the mornings, and now it's like all day, and we wonder why that is. It's because we've decided we're done. And as we practice this, it does get harder until finally it snaps. And then those cell receptors, because they were starved, when the cells go to form new receptor sites, there'll be less receptor sites for that pain. So don't feel like a victim. Just, I hope that like this video finds the right person, because this really and truly was like groundbreaking for me, and it changed my life. It healed things. And people always say like you don't really seem fazed by a lot, like I'm an Aries and I definitely have a temper. I can certainly be assertive and hot-headed, but in terms of letting things just like really affect me on the long term, it's like I don't have the energy to put into things like I once did. It's not there. Like, it's so easy to look at reality objectively once I've learned to conquer my inner reality. So anyway, I really wanted to share that with whoever needed to hear it. And again, I hope it found the right person, because this is now trending, and I'm so happy to see that people are creating an awareness around this. Because if we can heal our victim patterns, that just says so much about our capacity to connect, our capacity to create, our capacity to build, our capacity to heal, So I'm really glad that people are finally bringing more awareness to this topic. And if you need help, you know where to find me, thedharmicpath.com. Please feel free to email me, and we'll go from there.